Hey there, welcome back to MVP Business Podcast, where we showcase leaders who live through their mission, vision, and passion to drive growth, profits, and loyalty. Today's guest is Danny Kent. Not only is he a longtime friend of mine, but he is the owner and founder of 5D Show Services. They provide everything that you need for your trade show and event needs. And I've been working with Danny, you may have heard my commercial, for what's like 15 or 20 years. And I really am truly amazingly impressed and have been with Danny's commitment to, and his team's commitment to quality and service. He literally met me in the parking lot of Central Market in the middle of the night with my trade show graphic needs for a really big event the next day, because he knew that it was really important. So he went to the airport, picked it up, brought it to me, and everything was gravy. So I'm so excited to have Danny here. He also helped me make this sign behind me and any other signs that you have or will see at Vine Collective or MVP Business. So thanks for being with me, Danny.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. It's exciting, and thanks for the introduction. That's 15 years. That's been a fun time.
It has been a fun time. We've done a lot of work together with a lot of different kinds of companies. So some of that has been with 5D and some of it hasn't. Tell me a little bit about you, Danny, before you started 5D, and not necessarily your professional life, but rumor has it you're a musician.
I am. I like to say I'm a jack of many trades and a master of none. So yes, I play drums, and actually during quarantine, I'm trying to reteach myself piano right now. So that's what I'm kind of keeping myself busy with these days. But yeah, so I go back to, I've been in the trade show industry for over 30 years. Started back in Dallas. My dad and his partner Larry Crumlish had a company called the Exhibit Store back in Dallas that kind of got me. I started there just in high school looking for a summer job, so it's kind of got my feet wet in the graphics department, and that's really kind of my background. I love the graphic and the design aspect of this industry, so that's kind of what how it all started.
Nice. And so we worked together for several years when you were in a different company. Tell us about why you decided or how you decided to go off on your own. And then with that, kind of how your family reacted to your decision to start your own business.
Yeah, I've kind of had a love-hate relationship with the trade show industry, and that might just be normal for 30 plus years. And I think what I've always wanted to own my own company, and I never really knew what aspect that was going to be. Again, I have so many interests in things, and so I never really knew what that business was going to be, but I knew I wanted to have the flexibility of working for myself and all that. Well, after 30 plus years in the exhibit industry, it just made sense that that's what I know and that's what I'm good at. And that's, I've built a relationship with clients, and that's really what I like. I like the collaboration with clients and the design and the building, the execution and all that. But I think I felt for, 29, 30 years, it was kind of a grind. And I think hindsight, now that I'm out of it, looking back, it's like, I think it was because I wasn't doing it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So there was family super supportive. My wife was super supportive, but back in 2016, it was just a good opportunity. I knew it was a good time for me to make a change. And I started kind of an exit strategy of my old place and an entrance strategy into my new business, kind of planning what that was going to look like. And frankly, it was because I had so much support with my wife, Debbie, and it made it so much easier for me to make that leap. And I did it, and it's been great. And I do think that's hindsight. It's everything that I was hoping that owning my own business would be. It is what it is now. Not to say that everything has been great since then, but it's still, I wouldn't change it for anything. You know, it's really giving you the flexibility and the freedom and to do the things that I wanted to do with my business.
So that was going to be my next question with that. What is it that you love so much? Is the flexibility and the freedom? Is it of time or of where you can go with your business?
A little bit of everything. Right now, it's the time, and you know, I feel like, especially working from the house, that and I'd be lying if I said I spend 8 hours a day, behind the computer focusing on this business. But it may also be because I've got 30 years of experience in it that I feel like you know I can focus my day on a chunk of time in the morning, focusing on business. And then if I need to shift gears and do something totally different than the business for an hour or two or whatever, I can do that. And then, I like the flexibility of not having a 9 to 5 essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I can focus on the business as I need to. And if I'm, as you know, laying in bed in the middle of the night, I'm strategizing and doing stuff like that. So it's still kind of a never-ending cycle, but it's not so cut and dry of I got to be there at this time, I got to go lunch at this time, and I got to do this. So it really it's been relaxing for me in the sense that I feel like I'm more productive and creative.
That's really nice. Tell me what you like least about being a business owner.
So certainly the administrative part of it was, because I was so excited and confident in starting this, for me, it was like, hey, I've got the relationships, I got the clients, I got the products, I know the industry. Great, let's do it. And then it's I got to do invoicing. Oh, I've got to do accounting. Oh, I've got to pay taxes. Oh, I got to do all that. So all that stuff has been a learning curve for me to get into. And, talking about taking blocks, 2-hour sales blocks here. I gotta have a block of accounting and QuickBooks tutorials and stuff like that. Cause right now I'm doing it all. So that's the biggest challenge is making sure I'm not, things aren't slipping through the cracks on the administrative side.
So which part of it do you put off the most?
The accounting. Stuff.
Yeah. I don't know why. I think I jump into accounting because it feels like it easy. I can just do this real quick. I don't have to think about it. It's the big work that I put off, like the book reports type stuff, strategy. Once I get into it, I'm like, oh, this is so cool and I love this and I'm so excited. But getting started is the hard part for me on this.
Well, and as you say that, you're probably a lot more strategic with that than I am too. I certainly can do a lot better job at so many things that I'm doing. That's one thing that I regret because I'm doing so much that, I'm kind of like everything else. I'm a jack of all these trades, but I'm not a master of any of them. So I'm sure my marketing needs to be stepped up. My marketing efforts, my sales calls and networking and all that stuff. I wish that I could focus, on one of those at a time, but I kind of feel like they all probably suffer a little bit just because I'm trying to manage them all at the same time. Hopefully one day I'll be able to have people focus on each of those certain areas and free me up in that time.
Who do you think, or what role do you think you would hire first?
I keep going back to accounting just because and I think it's because I don't like to leave it a mess. I'm one that likes to balance his checkbook to the penny, after months. And so I like my business to be that way, but I just don't have the time to focus on that and learn, really learn the process. QuickBooks is like overwhelming to me. And I mean, I could really spend hours and hours trying to be efficient at that. I know just enough to be dangerous, but I'd like to be able to just hire somebody to take care of all that. I want to focus on client relationships, projects, marketing, networking,
The
And,
stuff you enjoy and you're good at.
yeah, yeah, I love the whole process of, the sitting down and strategizing with clients, kind of seeing what their needs are, what shows they're going to, what the expectation is at show, and then tailor a plan, whether it be an exhibit and graphics or just the whole, the logistical part of it, if they're, going internationally or whatever. So I like that. I like that kind of production work part of it.
So tell me, and I mean, I know because I've been working with you and on this side of it for years and years, but a lot of people listening may not know what show services means or may not ever have actually attended a trade show yet. So tell us about, like, end to end, what does 5D do? What is show services?
Yeah, so actually, 5D show services is exhibits, graphics, and services. So exhibits is the physical structure, the graphics is the branding and all the printing that goes on there. And then the services is pretty much everything outside of that, the logistics of getting it fabricated, getting it from the factory to the show, helping a client with the whole show book of a trade show. When you go to a trade show, you get a show manual. It used to be a physical manual, now it's all online, but it's overwhelming. And a lot of the times I'm dealing with clients, especially new people to trade shows with that are just overwhelmed by what all that means. When they get this manual with a login, it's like, oh my God, where do you start? And it's everything from, what they call drayage, which is, when they're accepting the freight in at the either the warehouse or the trade show or the convention site. There's, you have to order electrical and, any kind of carpet cleaning and pretty much any kind of services. We can help the client navigate through that manual. And then make sure frankly, 3/4 of that manual, most people don't ever need. So, but sometimes people just need to hear that. It's like, here, go to these 5 forms. You just
you
need
only
to
need
fill
these
those
5
out.
pages. Yeah.
Yeah, to get those
The
5
essential
pages.
ones.
So it's
Yeah.
a lot of that.
I think a lot of people who have never attended, well, there are those who've attended, just like walked the floor of a trade show, and they see there's, the 10 by 10 spaces where there's like backdrops like this, or the roll up banners, brochures on the table. And then you have the big guys that have, a 40 by 40 space. And there's stuff hanging from the ceiling and lighting and all sorts of custom shapes and sizes. And I think it's important to know that Danny's group does all of that and can help you, not only purchase it and get it there and get it set up, but to help you determine, what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve there? What's your budget? Oh, well, let's take advantage of that. Let's open up these walls. Are you having meetings on site? All the questions that you guys ask are so much more than order taking of like, oh, send me your artwork and I'll have it made. So I think that's really important. And also I'm thinking from a marketing standpoint that it's really very, very important. I'm gonna look right at the camera to say that if you plan on having a booth at a show, you need 2 to 3 months advance notice to start planning and talking with your design team and your show team. 6 months is great because then you can really strategize and you can figure out how you're going to market, how you're going to do maybe pre-show meetings or post-show meetings or dinners afterwards, or, take advantage of all the expenses. It may cost you at a minimum $10,000 to be there. You might as well take somebody to dinner while you're there. So
Absolutely.
I don't know, what else do you have to say? Advice?
Yeah, that's all excellent stuff. And that's really what we try to focus on, especially those larger island exhibits or even inline, the 10 by 20s or 20 by 20s and larger. But yeah, we really spend a lot of time with the client, the discovery meeting before that we want to find out all that stuff, what we want to find. And that's why you and I loved working with you on because you're so good at capturing that with your clients, about the branding and messaging and what the idea is at the show. And a lot of times you bring that information to me, and then we build structures and things around that space. And yeah, obviously the larger and the more complex the exhibit is, and depending on the location, the more time, it's certainly best to, I love hearing you say that, 2-3 months out is ideal. But at the same time, the things behind you, we can crank out banner stands and back walls in 7 to 10 days too.
Right.
So it's,
I think we had a week on this one, and we turn our artwork around quickly.
yeah, exactly. So, and that's part of the education too, that what we get into with the services. A lot of times people, usually when you're dealing with larger companies that have larger exhibits, they're going to have a marketing department and maybe an ad agency or somebody who's capable of creating the artwork. A lot of times though, I deal with people that have no marketing department. They have no way of creating the large format graphics, which is critical to get the high resolution and designing for billboards rather than small print. So that's another service that we offer is, if people need help with that kind of, I call it production art. We can help with that. I certainly like to send people your way, and when somebody needs a full creative concept for their brand, that's usually when I like to partner with someone like you to take care of those kind of needs.
What are some of the biggest obstacles that you find businesses run into on a regular basis when it comes to trade shows and events?
Say that again.
Some of the biggest obstacles that you like that you see people run into this time and time again. They just don't think about it.
Yeah, especially with the people that are new to trade shows, the biggest thing I see is they don't understand the big scope of things. And I'll inevitably get somebody that will call me and say, hey, I've got a show, we're doing a 20 by 20 in California. It's like, oh great, when's the show? Oh, in 2 weeks. And it's like, oh well, what, do you have anything? No, this is our first one, we have nothing. And so it's really so there's the people who know it, and the people who've been in the trenches, they know, and they know how to schedule the time. The biggest hurdle that we run into, and we still try to fulfill these orders, but the people that need something essentially overnight and they're starting from nothing. So we're not only are we educating them on the way that it works, because the last thing I want to do is be the naysayer. It's like, oh no, you can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. But I also want to set real expectations and say, look, we can do it, but to get that kind of exhibit in 2 weeks, you've already missed, cutoff days at the advanced warehouse. So there's all these things that by missing those critical deadlines, they're really adding to their budget. Even though they think that they're saving money on the front end, they're actually adding it on the back end because they're expediting freight. They're paying overcharges for, having to go direct to a show site, and everything is just truncated and more expensive as you have to squeeze it in. So yeah, it's, what I like is when we do have a client like that comes in and appreciates what we did for them in that tight turnaround. And then it's like, I get it. Next time so you keep that client, but the next time they know, it's like, okay, we need to start playing. And then we can kind of help them set up an expectation for future shows and kind of give them timelines for things like that. So I've seen it work both ways, where clients come and then they feel trapped, and then they feel like the company kind of took advantage of them because they were in such dire need to get to that show. And I don't ever want someone to feel that way. I'd rather them feel educated. And and I've told people this too, it's like, I'd almost rather you not go to the show because of what it's going to cost you to get there. And let's look at what other show options you have that give you enough time. And even if you spent the money and went and walked the show this time, but don't try to invest in a 2-week period just to make an impression there.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't set up your strategy ahead of time for collecting leads or following up. You can't get the custom anything. You're stuck with what can we do quickly, and then you do have all of those extra expenses for shipping and the collection of the materials and transfer of the materials once they're there, and then sometimes you're stuck with whatever materials you had from a like brochure standpoint. So we've had people say, hey, we're at CES in Vegas. Can you create a one-sheeter real quick for us and we'll print it at the post office in our hotel and then we'll pick it up. Like, yeah, we can do that, but there might be mistakes in the copyright.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah, and you know that. Yeah, all of that stuff, you just open yourself up for mistakes when you're just really trying to crunch it in there. But that's a good point too. And we do, talking about solutions for those short windows too, is we do offer rentals and things like that. But even when someone comes to us and thinks they're going to do a 20 by 20 in 2 weeks, and we say, well, you can't, I don't know that we could build something in that, design and build something custom in that time, but we do have rental options. And then even that within a 2-week period, if they have no concept of what they're doing, really feels like a Band-Aid fix. And again, it's like, I don't think that that's really in their best interest of spending, $20,000 on a rental even that they haven't really thought through.
So what I typically tell people from a timeline standpoint is that we want to have all of our planning and artwork completely done at least 2 weeks prior to the show, so that then we're just looking at printing and shipping.
Mm-hmm.
You get it in the hands of your printer, whether it's your brochure printer, your trade show printer. If your best case scenario is that all of your planning, all of your logistics, all of your meetings are set up 2 weeks prior, and then you can handle any artwork changes or things that pop up from a proofing standpoint, or the image isn't high res enough, or whatever it is. Then you have time to work through those details without panic.
Exactly. Yeah. And that too. We both have those stories too, where it's like, because to a client, if you tell a client, yeah, I need 7 working days to get these printed, and you don't get artwork until the 5th day, and then it's low resolution, and they're still thinking that they're in that 7-day period. It's like, well, I got you the artwork within the 7 days. Like, no, I need 7 days from the time we get the artwork and then it's print ready and all that. So yeah, it's exciting.
It's so fun. So I asked you what the biggest obstacle is for clients. What's been your biggest obstacle other than getting started? Because that's a whole hour-long conversation there. What's been your biggest struggle with your just being a business owner, or this particular kind of business owner?
Yeah, I would say for me, some of the struggle has been finding my new day. It's like what my plan is for the day. And it's, it was easy when I went into an office, because you're kind of trapped there for, essentially all day. And it's like, you had meetings and you had kind of had your routine in place. For me here, because it's easy to be distracted and kind of, I've got to be focused. It's nice that I can come out to my space here, and it can essentially be my office. But yeah, it's for me, it's probably been the discipline of staying on task and staying with making sure that I'm making enough calls and making enough contacts and doing the things I need to do in the day. At the same time, I do feel like that, that's kind of the stress that I can come back here and sit in my desk and sit in the office, and you don't get calls or emails from people in a day or two or whatever. And it's like, it can be that kind of panic moment as a business owner. But I do find that it's like, if I leave my desk and go do something else to clear my mind, it's interesting that when I come back, that a lot of times the work is there. It's like kind of like the, watch kettle never boils or something. That it's like as soon as I leave and I'm doing other things, then as long as I'm doing the things I need to do to fill the funnel, I don't have to watch it every minute of the day. And it's but that's kind of been a struggle for me to find that routine.
Mm-hmm. What are your go-to methods of filling the funnel?
Lot of online strategy stuff. LinkedIn and making contacts with LinkedIn is good. I've got my my networking groups that I try to stay in contact with. I need to get better at getting out and doing like the coffees and the meet and the greets and the networking things. But I'm not finding that the just picking up the call, picking up the phone is not has not worked well for me. Leaving lots of voice messages and things like that does not seem to be what people want. And I know when I was in the office and I'd get people calling me, that's not what I wanted. So I try to put myself in a customer's in the customer's shoes and how I want to be addressed as a customer, and just try to focus my energy that way to reach out to people.
So I would say that, having worked with you for this long, that's probably the main reason why you've been successful as a sales and strategy person before, and as a business owner now, that you're just continually putting yourself in the shoes of your customer and the mindset of your customer, and, how do they want to be approached, how they want to be, what would you want if you were in their place? And that's been your kind of mode of success without even knowing it.
Yeah, thanks. And I do feel like that's what works for me too. And I think I get a lot of referrals because of that too. Mm-hmm. And that's really what has worked best for me, is just repeat clients and referrals. And I love that, because I mean, it's kind of just reassuring that I'm doing what's right for me. And I've said this before, and this is probably terrible to put on record, but I've told people that I'm not a great salesperson. I'm not a typical salesperson, and maybe it's the way that I'm phrasing it, but I don't like to be labeled as a salesperson. But I like everything that goes along with what I do. It's like I like the interaction with people. I like taking care of clients, and I like finding a need and servicing that need. And so if that's what sales is, then so be it. But I certainly don't like to be labeled as so many people, especially in the trade show industry, will refer to salespeople as like a car salesperson, and that's the last thing I want to be compared to.
Poor car salesman. Like being an attorney in the world, you always get the butt of the jokes. I completely agree with that. People say the same thing, or I would say I hate sales. I'm a terrible salesperson. Somehow I've been able to be successful at some role of sales for 20 years, but
right. Yes,
it's all about the referral and the relationships. I don't pick up the phone. Not to make calls like that. So let's talk about the your business is.
Before you jump on that, I was just gonna finish up, but your story of the Torchy's Tacos connection is awesome.
Oh,
because
yeah.
that was, I mean, that was essentially a cold call story
Totally.
too, and that's so awesome. And that was I think about that all the time when I'm it's like, and I think that's the way that's most successful, is like when you have a specific person that you want to target, a specific client or whatever. I think that was an awesome strategy and an awesome result.
Thank you. So for those who don't know, I think that what happened was I was trying to figure out where and who to launch the podcast with. And I had a couple of ideas that weren't really panning out. And then I thought, what business is really driven by their mission, their vision, and their passion, and they're known in this area? that I could go and have an event at their space. And in the middle of the night, I thought, Torchy's Tacos. And so I looked them up, and sure enough, they really, Mike Ripka lives through and breathes through his mission and vision without even knowing it. It's just part of the core of what he wants for his business. And so they give back to the community, they foster their employees, they really, really have passion about their products, and they're just phenomenal. So I just dug and dug and dug and kept like, well, okay, I'm going to try this, and that didn't work. So I'm going to try this, and that didn't work. And finally, called headquarters and an email, and got it email from Mike saying, hey, text me is the best way to get in touch. So I did.
Yeah, so cool. That was great.
But I think the point with that for me, I had heard for years and years that it's not hard to sell when you know for certain that you can provide something great for the person that you're going after.
Exactly right.
And that, for me, that he was perfect. Like, I want to highlight how good of a job he's been doing. And I think that's been happening for me a lot. And my husband has been talking about how, like, the fear just leaves me. And I'll be like, oh, that's so-and-so, the owner of what, and I'll just go after him and like stop them. And, we're like, wait for them to finish their conversation. It's like, Art, I need to interview you because you do such a good job with your business. And I'm starstruck by them because they do such a good job. And they're like, well, who's going to want to know about my little old business? I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
And I feel like other people do too.
Sure.
So
yeah, that was a great, that was a good thing and a great story. That event turned out great. And yeah, and you're right. It was great to hear all about him. And what was cool about him too, that Torchy's guys, how humble he was about that, and it's like, sometimes you feel like these really successful people have it all together. And it's like, he's like, like sometimes he's winging it.
Mm-hmm.
With probably in the early days more so, but yeah, that was really insightful.
It is. I think that most of the people who you think are insanely successful and have all these great strategies, a lot of times they are winging it, but because their passion and their mission is so clear, the wings are going in the right direction. Does that make sense? And like, you're pointed. It's kind of like when you walk away, you come back and your email is, full, or you get new business, but that's because you've been pointed and you've been saying the right things for so long that your cup is filling, when you're away.
I totally agree. And we were just talking about this last night, where it's like, yeah, it's the passion is the passion, and the idea is the business strategy. Is the business plan, whether you've got it written down or you're just constantly thinking about that. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you just said, it's like all paths are leading towards that, and you're driven by your passion. It's just like, I think that's a recipe for success.
I agree. And when you are clear about that, I think, at this time in, your early business, when it's just you, you can let that path guide you. And it gets more and more challenging as you have more and more people underneath you. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to Mike. And that's actually, Vista Brewing, that's my dog behind the thing making noises. Vista Brewing is on our list to have our next event there. And they came, the owners, Kent and Karen, came to the Mike Ripka event because they wanted to hear, how did you grow and scale and get all these employees and keep them aligned to that mission? Nice. And you keep talking about it, and you keep that clarity. And if you keep the clarity as you grow, then hopefully the mission and the vision grows with you and with all of those people that come on board. And I think, we're in the process of developing leadership programs to help people with that and keep their teams just staying on board. And one of the things that we're really interested in seeing, right now we're in the kind of height of the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis. And we're seeing that the countries and communities and businesses that have clear leadership. They know what their value systems are. They may not, a county or a city may not have a mission, but the leaders have a vision. And the more clear they are on what their value system is, the quicker they can make decisions, the quicker their administrations and everybody under them can make decisions, because they know where to go, and they feel like they're empowered, that they know that they have an understanding that this is what the directive would be if we had time to ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that they can communicate that really well too. There's what I'm learning in this whole process too, is that's a huge, if you can communicate that to your employees too, that your passion kind of drives the business. It's infectious to everybody. And then if you can communicate that and get everybody on board, it's huge.
It is. It's absolutely huge. And even when, like you and I, we work with a lot of contractors. And so how do you go about picking your either contractors that you work with for, setting up a trade show in another city, or with picking the vendors that, do your printing for you? How do you go about finding those people?
Yeah, so it's kind of got a lot of connections in the industry, but really what connects me ultimately with the people that I work with is, one, being able to work well with the people. So it's kind of the 3 Ps: the people, the product, and the pricing. But I've definitely got to work well with the people, and we've got to kind of be in alignment on our ideas and work philosophies. And then the products, I certainly need to, feel confident. I've got to trust the products, and I've got to feel good about I got to be confident and passionate about the products in order to feel good about presenting those to my clients as solutions. And then it's got to be competitive. The pricing's got to be competitive. And what I have found over the years is typically where all that is in alignment is usually when I'm feeling good about a product, that the people who are making that product or representing that product, we're kind of all seem to be in alignment, because we kind of have that same common interest of, yeah, this is good stuff, and I love the way this works and whatever. So those 3 things always seem to kind of go hand in hand. And so, yeah, it's really the people and the product are the first thing. And then obviously it's got to make sense for everybody's budget. So, so that's kind of how I've gone about it so far, and that seems to be working well. But I'm always looking for new, and exciting products. There's a lot of things in the industry that's exciting to me right now, and a lot of virtual reality things that are really cool. And I'm actually been not partnering with people, but just talking to people in that space, and kind of making those early connections and those early relationships, and kind of seeing how my business model and their business model could work together.
That's cool. And because you're on the front lines making the recommendations to the clients, and so that it makes sense for some of them to have AI or VR as a part of their show or event experience. So since we are in the middle of stay at home, tell us about how that's affected your business, because you're all about these large, multi-person get-togethers.
Yeah, and that's been a struggle for sure. It's been interesting to see. Well, first of all, for me personally, it's fortunately, unfortunately is that business stopped in March. So really, I've got clients who have some shows in late summer that we're still, fingers crossed, that haven't been canceled. So we're still cautiously optimistic that those will happen. There's lots of things to consider there, but I've only had a couple clients that were in the middle of getting things produced when their shows canceled. Mm-hmm. So it was like, so it was unfortunate, but they weren't huge projects, and it was, and so my my business personally, as far as loss goes, has been minimal, except for potential business. Obviously that's been tough, but it's been interesting for me to see how other people in my industry have kind of retooled, and especially bigger companies like the manufacturers, the people who are doing custom exhibits and custom building things, where there's some of them are shifting and they're doing like, all of a sudden they're retooling their CNC routers to do PPE and do things like that, which is awesome. It's a great use of their equipment, great use, great need for the healthcare industry. And so I'm not in a position to do that. I don't do any manufacturing, but I'm inspired by that kind of ingenuity, and just seeing how people are, it's not, one thing I struggle with in all of this is like, how do I still have products that I could offer people that might be beneficial during this time, but I struggle with, how do I don't want to market myself, but I also I do want to market myself, but I really want to do it in the sense of I want to help the community and more, so I struggled with that a little bit, but we came out with something where we were just offering, for throughout this time through the end of May, we're offering, deep discounts on a lot of these products that can be used for the healthcare and kind of the frontline people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, so yeah, it's been it's been a challenge for me as a small business to figure out where my space is, or, in this time, without being too salesy, if you know what I mean. I want to be helpful, and I want to survive as a company, and but I also want to do it responsibly.
Yeah, I just interviewed Justin Foster with Root and River a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to paraphrase. He said, you don't want to go quiet, you don't want to go dark, you want to keep telling your story, but you can't sell. In the traditional, like you were saying, car salesman way, you can't be cold. It's like someone trying to come in.
I forgot I'm on camera. My daughter was just about to come inside, so I was trying to go with
That's awesome. Yeah, so it is an interesting time. And the thing that I was on a call with Brody Lee, a coach who coaches coaches. And he was saying, people really need a lot of services right now, and they need to be thinking about their business. They need to be planning and strategizing differently. Everybody's in this like shift or bob and weave pivot, whatever you want to call it, phase. And I think it's really so healthy for leaders to realize that we have to be in this mindset all the time. We just don't have to do it this quickly most of the time.
Right.
We don't all do it at the same time.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been it's a weird time, and it's going to be interesting to see what we look like when we come out of this, because I think there's going to be a lot of new things put in place after this. So it's been interesting. It's been a struggle, but it's also been inspiring to see when people are doing it, doing it responsibly and doing it well, whatever that means, whether they're donating stuff or time and products or retooling their equipment to help a need.
Yeah, it has been really very fascinating to watch. One of the things that I see about you, one of the big questions that I usually ask is, how do you handle competition and roadblocks? I think I know the answer because I know you well enough, but how would you answer that? Like, how do you handle these types of or any challenges and roadblocks?
Yeah, I would say I can only do what I can do, so I try not to worry myself too much about what my competition is doing that I'm not at this point. I do my thing, and I do it to the best of my ability, and I try to Not to say that I'm not open-minded if somebody comes to me and says, hey, somebody else is doing this and can you do that or whatever. I'd certainly be willing to make sure I'm doing what, what the market needs. But I really try to do my thing, and I try to do it to the best that I can, and offer the best products and best pricing, the best service. And hopefully that is what it takes. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that getting on LinkedIn and seeing what a lot of the other industry does, it can be daunting, and it can be like, oh, should I be doing that? Should I be doing that? And I do need to reel myself in a little bit. It's like, that's something to aspire to if I wanted to ultimately get there, but I have to be realistic of where I am and do the best with the tools that I have now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good way for everyone to think about it. You can always improve. You can always move forward. You can always aspire to greater things, but all you can do is the best you can do with the tools that you have.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Is that what you thought I'd say?
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you most grateful for in your life, not necessarily your business?
So probably be too cliche to say, my family, but that's really it. The girls are awesome. The support of my wife, has been huge, and my family, from my mother and brother and, everybody helping, support me to do this has been awesome. And yeah, just my daughters, watching my teenage daughters grow up as prickly, we call them being prickly as they can be. They're still pretty awesome to watch. They're certainly smarter and more insightful at their age than I ever was as a teenager. So it's kind of cool to see them. And got one that's about to go to college. So that's been kind of an interesting thing to navigate. And then the other one's a freshman in high school. So, but they're what I'm most proud of.
That's beautiful. What inspires you? Where do you find your inspiration?
Everywhere. I like to, I keep going back to the jack of all trades, master of none. I love to do a lot of different things. And so I get inspired by, if it's a mountain bike rider that I'm, admire, I get inspired by him, or a woodworker or a musician, or a business leader. So it's really kind of, and a lot of design. I'm a very visual learner, kind of visual person. So I get inspired by just beautiful design too, and whatever that means. If it's woodworking or bikes or drums or graphic design or exhibits. So kind of take all that stuff in is, I always think of like Steve Jobs. I always felt like he was a guy who, taking his management style out of the things. I just always admired his attention to detail and his attention to the aesthetics of things. And, reading about him, like, even as simple as taking like font classes, he was like really into the design of things. And I like that. I like that idea, and it doesn't have to be a font, or it doesn't have to be a computer, but just that taking that aesthetic design and inspiration out of nature and everything. It kind of is inspiring to me.
That's fantastic. What a great way to live life.
It's overwhelming sometimes. I think at the same time, it's like, it might be my ADD kind of kicks in. It's like, oh, that's pretty. Hey, I like that. It's like everything's inspiring.
I feel like my kids think that about me. I'm like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that over there. Look how pretty. Oh, look at that little thing on the thing. Yeah. Whatever it is.
Yeah. I need to be better at taking it all down. I think I take it all in visually, but I need to do a better job seeing something, writing it down, and I put a lot of that in my phone, and it's so easy now to take pictures of
Right.
things. So I'm constantly, if I see a design idea for exhibit stuff, it's like, I like taking pictures and kind of sketching stuff out. So,
That's a
yeah,
really
there's
good
lots,
point. You
lots
know,
of things to be inspired by.
Dave, who I used to work for at Envision, one of the things he would always say and tell to his designers is he's constantly seeing other designs and not just admiring them, but looking at them closely to say, how did they do that? And you think about the way you know your tools, and then we're like, oh, I see, there's a drop shadow, and they did this. It's like, what did they do that in Photoshop or Illustrator? And
Yes.
really dissecting it instead of just admiring it, like really figuring out how someone came to do that. I think painters and visual artists do a really good job of that sometimes.
Absolutely. And in exhibit design, there's really, I really appreciate, um, I'm such an amateur designer. Well, I mean, I know what I like, and I can kind of help do some creative design work and direction. But I really love working with designers who can kind of, in that discovery meeting with clients, really extract what their brand's about, what their product is, what their goal is, and then really put together just a killer design that makes sense. And it's not just, oh, that's a pretty design, we're going to put all your branding on it. It's like, no, the structure needs to make sense, the flow and the space and all that. And it's kind of what you were talking about earlier. Once you have that, and you buy into it, the designer buys into it, it's so easy to present that to clients. That this is the solution. This is, it's like, and not to be arrogant or anything, but it's like, this is like nailing everything that you talked about. It's a, and it does all that. What I always struggle with is, there are people out there that will take that initial design and just rehash it. Like, oh, this worked for that client. We're going to just take that design because we paid for it or whatever reason. It's in our portfolio. And not to say that there's not kit designs out there, but for these big custom projects, it's I don't know. I just have that appreciation for that, for the work behind that, and really making sure that all that makes sense, and getting the lighting and just the technical aspect of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It always amazes me to like sit in the same room in the same meeting with a copywriter or a designer, and we all talk about what we heard, and put it together, and I sketch something out, and then it all comes together, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
That's it.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
How did like our brains all come together to make that happen, or how did your brain hear all the in-betweens and the nuances and the feelings and the goals and the clients and everything, and you just like
Yeah.
made it into this magical, beautiful, effective piece of artwork. It's so
Yes.
phenomenal to watch.
Yeah. It really is. And then everybody is happy, and it's those are the best projects for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good.
Yeah, absolutely astonishing. What do you see? It's maybe hard to say in the like umbrella of COVID, but what do you see for the
Yeah.
future of 5D? Like we talked about, if you were going to hire an accountant or someone to help you with your books, do you see it growing to a office, or do you like being where you are?
I definitely like being where I am. There's so much, especially considering I'm seeing so many people in my industry, and this is a necessity for some people, but I'm so grateful that I don't have a
Warehouse.
big office, a big warehouse, a lot of assets, and a lot of things. It's this is just, it's me and my team. I've got partners that I work with, and everybody kind of has their own space. So that's great, and I'd like to stay in that space as long as I can, if it makes sense. I'm certainly not opposed to growing if it makes sense, but I like the space where I am. It's interesting as far as accounting and all that stuff. That certainly would be great, and I kind of feel like as as the company's more successful, that will kind of take care of itself. I'll be able to hire that out or whatever. What I think about most is like, where is my industry going? And with this, with COVID-19, it's been interesting because I've seen the AVs and the virtual realities and AI and all that stuff, even 5 years ago. And so it's really been talking to a friend of mine now with the way it's going now, is it seems like a good opportunity to do virtual trade shows right now, even though we've been talking about virtual trade shows for 20 years and it's never taken off. I still don't think that it's ever going to, you're ever going to get rid of and I don't want to, because I think you need the interaction with people. And I think the physical trade show space is a great way to do that. But I think there's just so much exciting, unexplored things with the virtual reality aspect of trade shows. And, whether that's just a small space in a booth or it's people are going to be virtually, they're going to be socially distanced and they're going to have their VR glasses or whatever they're doing and just going to submerge themselves in a virtual trade show from their desk.
Mm-hmm.
So all that's kind of exciting. I don't know, some people are doing it already and doing it well, but not to the full extent, and I think it's like, I don't know if you're ever into drones, but it's kind of like the drone industry was 5 years ago, where it's like, it just blew up and, it got to a point where it's like flood. What's that?
And now you can get a drone for $10.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's like, I think as that VR industry becomes a little bit more saturated, hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense for every exhibitor to be able to use it.
Have it to some extent. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Do you have much experience with that in your industry? Do you have clients that talk to you about that?
So kind of like you, we've been talking about integrating virtual reality or augmented reality for like 7 years at least. Most of my clients don't have the budget, like you said, like drones. Well, they've kind of come down in price quite a bit, so the accessibility is much greater. So almost every videographer and photographer has a drone now, so they can add that to their mix. I think you're right. What I do see though is a lot of the shows or events. Let's say I have a client that is a association for educators in the physical education space. And so they have 2 conferences every year, one in the summer and one in the fall. And so their summer conference, they were thinking about just canceling altogether. And I said, why? Why you don't need to do that? The technology's out there. You don't have to have yes, I feel 100% that going to an event where there are people and they have the physical energy and you can shake hands and get people's cards, and especially when it's a physical education association, you get up and do a lot of movement activities and learn new things. But it's not 100% necessary in order to continue to have. So it's a fix or an add-on to the existing show environment. And I've seen some virtual trade shows. I did quite a bit of research on it, and I only found like 1 or 2 companies that were doing a really good job of having a truly virtual trade show floor where you could walk in and everybody's booths are a little bit different. You have kind of like the wrap or whatever on the their artwork, and you have virtual white papers and brochures. You can click and read more information. You can click to watch their little video if they have one, and you can set up meetings and you can chat with the people at any particular booth, live chat at particular hours. And then you can exit, back up and you exit and you go to the session, and you can leave the session and go back to a happy hour or whatever it is. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity in that for times like now when it's not possible to get out and meet, or if somebody wants to add that on to their event and say, you can attend our virtual event for this much money, or you can come and be here for this much money.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's not going to
replace. Option.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if somebody says like, we just want to have, because people have been doing virtual, webinars or webinar conferences. That's been really popular this year, where you have multi-day, or a couple of years that you have multi-day virtual conferences, and you can log in whenever you want to. You pay however much per day, and you log in whenever you want to, and watch the sessions that you want to. You kind of pick your session.
Yeah. Awesome.
But I would rather go to an event. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, I do think that it's, and like I said, since the invent of the internet, they've been talking about physical trade shows going away by the wayside of virtual. And I don't see that being, I certainly see that being an option, but I don't see it wiping out the trade show industry. And, but I was going to tell you, and you might appreciate this in marketing, but so my oldest has been applying to all these schools. Well, University of Oregon they've had the best marketing and the merch that they sent out, but they sent this cool little box. So I used to have it out here, but so it was a little cardboard box branded with the duck, it was green and yellow. And you open it up, and then you pull the cardboard thing out, and then you fold it up, and then you put your cell phone in there. And so it's an augmented reality. So you download the app, and you put on the goggles, and then the graphic on the back is the duck, so it looks like you're holding up a duck face. But then you can really like tour the whole campus. So you've got like a real an aerial view of all of Eugene, Oregon. You're doing 360 pans, and then you can like teleport into certain buildings and find out about certain areas and whatever. And it was really well done, and it's one of those intended to be like a quick 2 to 5 minute presentation, but just the whole thing of the pre-show, or the whole marketing behind it was really a nice package.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Stuff like that is not cheap. So,
right, exactly.
But part of that is because of the video technology and the AR technology. But as much as the cell phones and the cameras on our phones have improved, that's hurting Canon and the good quality cameras that have been out there forever. It's like Kodak film. But when the cost of filming and producing the AR goes down, then it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be in every, our kids are going to be like, you didn't have AR, or
Yeah,
I don't understand.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, just like my kids asked me if we had cars when I grew up. I'm like, how old do you think I am? We had CD players. We didn't even have CD players when I first was growing up. But yeah,
that's fun.
so much has changed so fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, our world is completely changed. But as long as we're healthy to get out and physically touch each other, we will, and that will never be replaced. It's kind of like saying, when will we not have backyard barbecues? Well, maybe if we don't have a backyard, or if there's a new type of grill, or outdoor cooking thing that we have the opportunity to have, but we're still going to have get-togethers as long as it's a healthy option.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really feel for the extroverts who really who really needs to be out there. Is Andrew an introvert, extrovert?
He's an introvert. He's just like, he is just hopping around like crazy. He's like so excited right now. Yeah. I asked him, well, what's the one thing that you like about this? I'm like trying to find the upside. And he's like, oh, I'm like, yeah.
Not interested in any of those.
Yeah. Well, one thing he did say is that he doesn't have to wear shoes. Like, I haven't worn shoes. Like, even when I go outside, I don't even put shoes on because I know I'm not going far enough.
Nice. I do have my flip-flops on.
I don't have to wear shoes.
Yeah. That's been fun. But that's where Debbie and I. So we're both what is it? Introvert, extrovert. I think we're introverted first, but we still need our social time. But just enough to energize us, and then we come back. But so this is, since I've been working from the house, it hasn't really been that different for me. And that's what Deb said when I said yesterday was the first day I was really feeling antsy. She kind of had the same response. She goes,
And
really?
it's been a month.
I know.
To like give context for everybody what time we're talking. It's been at least 4 weeks, right?
Yeah. Right. Yes. Right. It's
March.
So
Now
yeah, it's when I start feeling like, okay, I can't go ride my bike downtown or down on the green belt or can't do that kind of stuff is when I start to feel a little confined.
I've been working from home for a year and a half. A year and a half, 2 years now. But I go out all the time. You know, I have meetings in Austin. I, do all the stuff. I 100% get my energy from other people. So I'm actually really glad I have kids right now to keep me kind of busy and entertained, but little kids. But it's like, normal and then down and then normal and then down.
Yeah.
And Andrew will ask me like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't have an energy source, like I can eat, I can go sit in the sun, I can go for a walk or run, but I don't have an energy, like plug me in. I need to go to a party.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you get recharged by doing this kind of stuff, or do you need the human touch and the live interaction?
I do get somewhat recharged by these like natural conversations. So I'm really glad that I have this, but it is the physical energy of the other person, and the larger, and I'm 100% different from Andrew. The larger the group, the more energy I get. For him, he's just like depleted fast. But I'm usually the first person to show up to a party and the last person to leave. And I'm just like, what? It's over? No. Like, I'm just getting started. Whatever. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm just getting started. Because I'm just, the more people, the more time, my energy just goes higher and higher.
Yeah, that's fun.
So sitting here by myself, I mean, I do relish, I've been in this house out in the hill country, with the beautiful surroundings for 5 years. And I think the longest that I sat quietly by myself was this Sunday. And it was like 30 minutes. Twice, actually, in one day. I sat for 15 minutes once, and then about 20 minutes, 30 minutes another time. In 5 years, that's the first time I've ever done that.
Where do you have the time to read? I know you do a lot of reading.
Oh, yeah. Well, I read at night when the kids are asleep.
Okay. That was the one thing we went camping at Davis Mountains in West Texas. And we went the Sunday of spring break. And so they hadn't actually made the call. So it was like we were camping during when they started having the stay in place and everything really started changing. And so but it's like when I go camping, that's really the only time that I find that I can really slow down enough to read.
Mm-hmm. Oh. I used to not read that much. I love camping because it does require me to totally slow down. I like going where like I don't have phone service, and so I just the phone is a camera at that point, and there's no other connection. But ever since I started the business, I just can't get enough reading. So I actually stay up later so that I can read for a couple of hours, and it's all business books. But I used to not be able to like concentrate. I would start and get a couple chapters in. I'm like, I don't even know what I just read. But now I'm just like, oh my gosh, I want to read this, and I don't know. It just really pulls me in. I can't get enough. Yeah. Well, I feel like every conversation with you is like this. We're like, oh, I guess we better get. So thank you so much, Danny. I'm so glad that we found the time to connect, and we'll do it again.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, definitely. It's always good to catch up with you. And this was fun because this was kind of a lot of different conversation than we normally have. So this was good.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of catch up and also some business talk. So with 5D Show Service, is there anything else that you want to say before we go?
No, just if there's anything that I can help anybody with for their trade show marketing strategy, be glad to talk to them.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely be calling you with all my show work. And hopefully we can get that client back on board for this fall.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So good luck to you. And yeah, hopefully we'll be through this before sooner than later.
Seriously,
Safely.
we need to
Safely.
at least have a, neighborhood get together or something so I can plug in.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So it's so good to talk
Is
to you.
Yeah, you too. I was going to ask, is Andrew still, is he doing much music stuff?
Yeah, he's decided to record himself and try to get it out there for like some lessons. And he took up bass. I don't know if I told you that. So he's a drummer, and took up bass so that he wouldn't have to cart his drums everywhere. It's much easier to
Nice.
bring a
Yeah,
bass and an amp. Um,
nice.
but yeah, so sometimes he does Zooms with he has a friend in Pflugerville, and they'll kind of jam together or
Oh, that's
send
cool.
recordings back and forth. He has a couple of bands that were going, but of course all the events were canceled.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good for him. Good for you. Seems like you're doing an awesome job. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm having fun anyway, so
Yeah.
we'll see if that works out to profit and growth. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thanks again for the invite.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Next time
Okay,
it'll be face to face with coffee or lunch or drinks or something.
definitely. Let's do that.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. See you,
Bye.
Steph.